Go. Kevin Ogar, legend. Dude, how are you?
I'm good, Tony. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm excited to have you on the show. You know the name of the show, of course, No Fear, K-N-O-W, Fear. The big thing that I try to do as far as like who I invite and why I invite them are people who've either dealt with some sort of life situation, which we all have in our own way, where managing fear was a very real and important part of that experience, that transformation. And so, you know, most people know me as when I first met you many years ago at the CrossFit Games, know me as that like self-defense guy. And I realized over the years that the most important aspect of being able to defend yourself was how mentally tough you are, and specifically your ability to manage fear, to look at stuff and not think, oh, you know, I must be weak and unskilled because I'm afraid, but recognizing that the courageous people are the ones who manage their fear. They're still afraid, but they're getting shit done.
Yeah.
So, but for people who don't know, because we've got like law enforcement, military, firefighters, CrossFitters, martial artists, there's a lot of people that may not know who you are. If you would, just give us that Reader's Digest Kevin Ogar debrief.
Okay, let's try this. So my name is Kevin Ogar, and I own a CrossFit gym in Denver, Colorado. I've been competing and coaching CrossFit for 10 years now. In 2014, I was paralyzed in a lifting accident out in California. Since then, I've opened a gym, started working for Level 1 staff, started working for the Adaptive Seminar staff, and run my own nonprofit.
Very, very cool. So your domesticated quadruped, aka dog, barked at probably the most important. That's cool. I got 4 dogs too, and I love dogs more than humans sometimes. And but I want you to repeat, you know, the California thing, because it was right at that moment, just in case anybody missed that.
Okay. I was paralyzed in California in 2014 in a lifting accident while I was competing at the OC Throwdown.
Right on. Obviously, you know, you probably talked about this a million times, and you know, I said this to you personally as your friend, and the day we did, you know, you brought me out to California and to California to Colorado, and we did the course.
Yeah.
The thing that amazes me is your mindset, your spirit, your energy. It's amazing to me, because I look at somebody like you and I go, wow, you know, would I have that mental fortitude and that toughness to mentally, emotionally recover from that? And I don't want you to like drag out like, cause of course you had shitty days and good days, but I think for people listening to this who haven't, you can't even comprehend that. I mean, how many times have you had somebody say to you, "Oh my God, I know how you feel," right? And like,
that happens all the time.
Like, then did you want to punch them in the throat? Like, what did you?
I just laughed, man. It's actually really. Oh man, I know how you feel. My back's really hurting today. Oh, okay, good. That's good. Yeah, you know exactly what's going on. You're fine.
Right. And I remember being at your gym, you know, watching you try to do muscle ups while strapped to the wheelchair.
Yeah.
And I'm here like struggling with my pull-ups, feeling like such a pussy, and wanting to like, okay, I'll quit right now, except that Kevin is strapped to a wheelchair doing, you know, muscle ups. I can't stop. It's insanely, I'm a big fan. I've told you that before. What if you were going to share something all these years later, just about, you know, what like mindset and mental toughness, and connect it to that? Because there's stuff that you learned about yourself, where it's not really practical to have like some like catastrophic accident to find out if you've got that toughness.
Yeah.
You know, like my big thing over the years, over 30 years, is when I meet somebody who has experienced extreme violence and I consider what happened to you extreme violence, right? And this is that paradigm shift. Is like we talk about self-defense, like, oh, and it's like people think about it in the force on force, like a bad guy, and self-defense can be and should be more holistic. How you talk to yourself is self-defense. How you let people talk to you, how you handle your business. It's about defending yourself and your family. So your event was extremely violent. What did you learn about yourself in terms of intuition, instincts, those thoughts, and like, what can you share on that level?
Well, I can tell you, I trust my instincts a lot more now. We've talked about this previously, where I did not have a good feeling going out on the platform to lift. I did not have a good feeling about the event, and I should have. Like, that was my event to win. Like, there was no one else out there that would have outlifted me.
Right.
So but I just didn't like it. I did, like, something felt off, and I went through with it anyway. And so I think for me, I've started and more since then, just really kind of trusting the way I feel about situations, the way I feel about people, and kind of, allowing that to kind of not maybe like prevent me from going into a situation, but knowing that I feel that way about a situation, really be more aware of my surroundings while in that situation.
That's very, very cool and very potent. And let me backfill some of that during the fear management psychology block in our seminar. We do a little talk about victims of violence, we call VOV. And one of the stats that I always share is that not 50%, 60 or 70, but 100% of every victim of violence who lives to tell the tale said they had a bad feeling before the event. And I remember talking about that. And then when we broke, you came up to me, and I think it might have been, I'm guessing, but correct me if I'm wrong, it might have been after hearing that and thinking about that, when you suddenly realized that you did, like, that became like, holy shit, I had that bad feeling. Because I remember you telling me in Denver, and I had goosebumps. Like, I had goosebumps now thinking about that, because this is, when we talk about choosing safety isn't about playing it safe. Choosing safety is about what you said just before, that now that if you got a bad feeling about there, you go in with your eyes wide open, you have a little bit more alertness, you maybe do a little bit more research.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, I do.
So, people sometimes ask, well, if you had a bad feeling about something, why did you continue? Why didn't you? And this is important, and it might be hard to talk about, but it's important for the safety of other athletes and just safety in life. Do you know why you didn't say, hey, or was it like so happening so fast? And you tracking what I'm asking?
Yeah. And I think for me, there was nothing obvious to me that was, like, at that time, was dangerous. I didn't know the floor was slanted a different direction. I didn't know they were going to be stacking weights behind me. I didn't know any of these things. And this is an event that I was supposed to win this event. Like, this was my event to win.
Right.
And so, like, going into it and not seeing, like, it's not like there was a bad guy, like, standing there with a gun pointed at me to be like, hey, this is a bad situation. It just happened to be like just a perfect storm of, like, bad shit going on around me that I didn't recognize or realize, because I didn't know what I was looking for. I just knew that in my gut, like, something didn't. I wasn't as excited about lifting. I wasn't, like, I just wasn't there.
Right. That's amazing. And here's the thing that we talk about is, and it's huge. There's a thing called cognitive dissonance, right? In psychology. And it's when we correct something that appears as an anomaly, but we go, that it must be okay because I'm in a bubble. This is my house. I know these people, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes we do that where we get a bad feeling. And I always tell everybody, hey man, like, if you get a bad feeling, address it, because at that point, like you said, there's nothing, there's no bad guy standing on your platform with a gun, and so, but there's that moment where, and I learned this because I've suffered from injuries from my martial arts and stuff, like where I would go to train and I'd go, man, my neck doesn't feel good, or my shoulder doesn't feel good. But I go do it anyhow, and I end up making that worse because I didn't warm up properly, or I didn't, whatever it is. But the lesson and the moral here is that if you've got a bad feeling about something, you need to get your head right, because
Absolutely.
this is This is, hang on one second. I got some background noise here. I don't know what is going on. How do you now, because you're coaching, you're on the level 1 team.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, and I feel so stupid even giving up that example. I feel like one of those idiots that say to you, yeah, my back hurts too. And, but it's important, again, like not to be like stupid, but like I want these shows to have value and to have integrity.
Yeah.
And there's very few people that can relate to you. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just trying to give an example. Like if I'm about to do a deadlift and my hamstring feels a little bit weird, that's your instincts and intuition saying, dude, change the weight, change the warm up step. It's like the batter stepping off the plate because he recognizes he's not in flow. He's not in the zone.
Yeah.
When you share that with your athletes and you're training your competitors and stuff, do you share anything more specific than, hey guys, like if you don't feel ready, like any tips there? Because I'm assuming that more of the CrossFit world will tune into this than other people.
Yeah, I think as a coach and utilizing kind of what I know now, I more or less kind of address almost the why. Like if I see someone miss a lift and I know they should make it, I kind of go up to them and be like, hey, like what's going on in your head? What are you thinking about? Why are you scared right now?
Right.
Almost always they're like, oh, I'm not scared, I just missed. I'm like, well, that's not a weight you should miss. Like you're scared of something. Let's talk about what's going on. Like, is there something that feels weird? Is there something that doesn't feel right today? And almost inevitably be like, I don't know, man, I'm just out of it. Like I trained for like 6 days in a row and I'm just kind of like out of it today. I'm like, okay, well then there it is. Or like, oh, I don't know, I tweaked my shoulder a while back and I'm babying it. And I'm like, okay, so there it is. Like, why didn't you, when I said, hey, is there anything wrong or anything I should know? What are you scared of? Why didn't your mind pop to that?
Beautiful.
It's almost the same answer every time. It's like, oh, well, I should be able to do this.
Right. And it's funny. And that was the big thing. I remember the Monday after our seminar, you had PR'd your bench press by something like 20 pounds.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know Kevin, aside from his 10 years of it, like to come back from an injury like that and get back into training and to open up a box and to continue to grow as a person and teach, like the mental toughness there is off the charts, right? Mm-hmm. And for those of you who don't understand weightlifting at that level, when you're at an elite level, your PRs are fractional. They're like a half a pound here, a pound here. Yeah. And like the day after the seminar, I remember you calling me going, fucking 20 pounds. What's
huge?
So, and you remember this is so cool. And I love, my favorite thing so far is you, walking up to your athletes and metaphorically putting your arm around the guy or the gal and saying, what's going on? What are you afraid of? And forcing them to introspect, because, we talk about what is the weight of fear. For you, the weight of fear was 20 pounds that day. And when you were able to look at your fear, suddenly you PR'd by 20 pounds. Talk about that, because I think that's to me so exciting.
I think as a coach, you have a lot of people who will miss lifts, miss this, not do as well, because they're stuck in the fear loop that you talk about. They're not focused on what they need to do to hit that lift or what they need to do to PR their friend. They're focused on like, what happens if I fail?
Right.
All that's going through their mind at that point in time during that lift is like, what happens if I have to bail backwards? What happens if I have to bail forwards? What happens if I don't hit this PR and I'm supposed to? And so I spend a lot of time with my athletes telling them like, hey, like we need to refocus you. Like why are you scared? And then what's one thing we can start thinking about that's relevant to this lift that'll get your focus on what you need to do instead of what's going to happen if you fail. And so we talk about that a lot at my gym. We're like, hey, let's focus on what you need to do to be successful and stop focusing on what happens if you're not.
Right on. I dig it.
Yeah.
Do you remember the quote that where you substituted 2 words to reframe? It was fresh in mind. Like this was a couple of years ago. But there was a line. So, for those of you who haven't done the course, there's a part in there where I talk about, I go, listen, you could have all the physical attributes you want. You can have range of motion, kinetic chain, the engine, aerobic capacity. But if you're scared shitless, unconscious, or dead, you're still not going to fucking move. Right. And so if you can do your bench press or snatch with your PVC and then an Olympic bar, and you got the range of motion, you got the mechanics, the technique, and you know how to coordinate everything, then your form should never break. At a certain point, the weight will get too heavy, and you're just now the weight is more, it's more than you can lift, but the form shouldn't break really. And I'm being theoretical here. The form shouldn't break until fear, right, starts to play a factor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And I remember you calling me and you had said specifically, so there's this one maxim that we share in the course where we say the psychology of intimidation is when you're visualizing what your opponent can do to you instead of what you must do to your opponent.
Yeah.
Right?
I think I switched it to visualizing what the bar is going to do to you instead of what you need to do to the bar.
Exactly. And you called me up and you said, you realized that when you were under the bar, that you were worried about the bar. You were thinking about if the bar fell on you, what would happen. Mm-hmm. And I remember laughing at you because you had already made the lift and said, guess what I did? I took that slogan, I switched this, and then it was like 20 pounds.
Yeah.
And I said, like, explain. And you said, I substituted, what your opponent can do to you instead of what you must do to your opponent to what the bar can do to you instead of what you must do to the bar. And I said, I remember saying to you, dude, if there's anyone on the planet that should be afraid of a bar,
yeah,
it would be you. The fact that you fucking looked the bar in the face and went, fuck you, bar. Right. And because that's looking at that fear, that was huge. I got goosebumps again. And this was, how many years ago did we do the seminar?
It's almost, it was over 3 years ago.
Wow. Like I get goosebumps now just thinking about that. Because that's, I was just talking to a CrossFit Box owner about setting up one of our Be Your Own Bodyguard gigs. And, the question always comes up like, hey, most grown adults don't get into fights, and I'm trying to reframe and tell people like understanding situational awareness, fear management, and like simple self-defense. That's like understanding nutrition. It's like understanding defensive driving. It's like understanding.
Absolutely.
It's just part of that package. I remember asking you, I think I said to you something like, well, this probably doesn't happen to you, Kevin, because you're in a wheelchair. And then you looked at me and you said, you have no idea how many people fuck with me because I'm in a wheelchair.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it is. I'm a little bit bigger than most people in a wheelchair, and so I think I have a little bit of an intimidation factor. But people see others in wheelchairs, and they think easy target. It's
unbelievable. I was so angry when I heard that. You hear it on the news, but when a friend of yours says, "No, dude, like I've had people," you told us, what was that one incident you said? You told me in the parking lot outside your apartment or something. One or two guys.
There's so many, Tony.
Share a couple just because I want our listeners. One of the things we talk about is, again, being that courageous bystander, but also having empathy for other people. Like you can't, if I say D1 is the most important thing, detect and avoid. I mean, how fast can you detect and avoid something if you're in a wheelchair or you're walking with a cane or you're, and so I want our listeners to listen to hear this. And I want that just this incredulous fucking moment. And I want you to think about that. If you were out in public and you saw this stuff, and people who don't get involved or don't try to help people out are people who can't manage their fear. This still comes around to managing fear, but go ahead, share the story, please.
Let's see.
Pick one of them.
So I think that's the biggest one is actually, I live in a house now. And this story is specifically the reason why is I actually had someone try to run me over with their car.
What the fuck?
for calling them out for parking in a handicap spot. So they had parked in a handicap spot and they walked out and they had used a fake handicap placard. And I go, ma'am, I just wanted to let you know that your handicap placard is fake and that what you're doing is wildly illegal. And people like me really need those spots. She went on this wailing, like, you don't know my life and you don't know what struggle is and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, lady, I'm in a wheelchair. I definitely know what struggle is, but you're still parked like an asshole.
Right.
And she's like, well, I'm leaving, so get out of the way. I'm like, well, no, I was going to let you leave, but now you're being a jerk. I've called the tow truck, so I'm going to sit in front of your car until I get here. And then you can talk to them about the $500 fine you're going to get.
Nice.
And she literally asked me, she goes, I think her direct quote was like, do you want another one? And I go, another one what? She goes, another handicap. And I go, I'm like, well, that's not how they work. But yeah, go for it. What are you going to do? Hit me with your car? And she goes, yeah. I'm like, all right, well then go ahead and get in and hit me with your car. And like, we'll see what happens after this. And so, I mean, she actually like got really close to me and then backed up and like drove over the median and drove away. But
Wow.
it, like all the time you see this kind of stuff happen. I've had people, I've had someone else where I was getting into my car at the gym at night, and it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and we're in a resident, like a business park, and no one else is around. And I've had like 2 or 3 guys start walking towards my car, and I'm like, well, there's no reason 2 or 3 guys should be walking towards my car at this time of night.
Right.
So I always conceal carry, but I don't like to I don't want to ever have to actually use it. But I can't really drive with my gun underneath my chair, so I just calmly took it out of its holster. I dropped the magazine. I just racked it really loud and set it in the chair next to me. And those guys just turned around and walked the exact opposite direction. Nice.
That was a nice auditory defuse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, let me just because I am your friend and I do teach self-defense, the next time somebody does that in the handicap stuff, like just take a picture of their license and like don't stand behind their car and you sit behind the car in the chair and taunt them. I understand how pissed off you were, man, but had she been a little bit more crazy, and I understand you read that shit and you get fed up and stuff like that. It's a cool story, but you were helping. And I
was not diffusing the situation.
You were not diffusing the situation. And listen, I'm not. Like I just always want every conversation to be authentic. And there's times when you get pissed and you say that shit. I remember 2 guys coming into my martial arts school back when I lived in Montreal, and they, you're trying to sign up people. You own a gym, like someone comes in, if you're the only person there, you're trying to sign them up. You're doing everything, and these guys. It turned out they were from like some other school and they're just coming to check it out, but they had no interest in signing up. And I found that out after, when just as they were leaving, I said, so guys, why don't you come back like this week for, a free trial class? And they kind of looked at each other and got a smirk, and they were right at the door. And one of them said, oh, maybe, but hey, one last question. Do you teach like multiple assailant, techniques? I'm like, what? And it was like suddenly got weird. The energy got weird. There was no one in the gym. It was an odd time. And they kind of like looked at each other, and guy says, yeah, like 2-on-1s. And they got that like cocky little grin. And all of a sudden I realized what they were saying, and they'd just been wasting my time for half an hour, and they thought they were like, and I said, and this is you just made me think about this, because you jokingly said, yeah, I didn't really try to diffuse that situation with the lady where I looked at them and I said, really, guys? I said, you want to go fucking fight on the roof with me like Bruce Lee, like a Bruce Lee kung fu movie? I said, I'll tell you what would happen if you 2 fought with me. I said, first of all, I'm going to break your fucking knee. That one right there. You won't even have a chance to move. And then what I'm going to do is I'll drop you. And I like kind of pointed, and I fucking lost my shit. I'm like, and I'll fucking like, and they like, their faces changed. And I said, but here's what's going to happen is I will call you an ambulance and make sure that you get, the proper medical treatment, because I'm a nice guy. And I'm not saying this to be cavalier or whatever, but they kind of like, they looked at me and they went, calm down, man. Fuck, what are you, fucking crazy? And they walked out of there, and I called up my buddy Walt. And this is back like in the late 80s. And I was so angry at myself, Kevin, because I had lost my shit. Mm-hmm. And I was, threatening them. And I said, Walt, here I am, like this guy that's like, known for his psychological, system and verbal de-escalation and diffusing. And I fucking lost my shit. And he lets me finish talking, and he says, did you guys fight? I go, no, they left. He said, then you diffused it. Right. And I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way. But anyways, stupid story. It's amazing what we do when we're younger.
Yeah. Or just angry.
Yeah. And
having people park in those spots all the time, man. Like it is a, not so much anymore that I live in a house, but it used to be a daily occurrence where there had to be some kind of, where I had to learn how to talk to people to let them know, like, hey, this is not okay, without me losing my temper and being like, hey, I want to rip your face off.
Right. and they can't understand, but I get it, man. I get it. I mean, fuck. And I'm not going to say I know how you feel, but right. It's, you just like, there's just stupid people out there. And I just posted yesterday on Instagram, like, like about how many people are full of shit. And there's, I know, somebody who has they have a fake, plaque, the handicap thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, not fake, it's legit, but it's not, and they've got some issues, and I'm trying to dance my way around this in case they listen to this, because there's a legitimate issue, but it's not, they shouldn't be in a handicap spot. They can walk, like, but I have very, very strong opinions about that. My integrity is not for sale. And it's like, hey, like, if you can walk over here, to the kitchen and get some food, and then walk upstairs to the bathroom, all that, you can find a parking spot and walk to wherever you're going. Well,
the funny part is that, I always find the people who are like, I don't know. I actually don't always park in handicap parking. Like if the parking lot's empty, I go and park in the far back where there's plenty of spaces, and I can get in and out of my car easy enough. The only reason why most people get upset about the handicap spots is because we actually need that extra stripe space to get in and out of our cars.
Right.
It has nothing to do with being close. In fact, most of the guys that I know that are guys and girls that, like, I know that have handicap placards would love it if they just put those spots as far away as possible, because then no one would ever park in them.
Right.
What I've come to find is that the people who actually need those spots, or actually deserve those spots, are the ones who are fine with parking anywhere else. We just need those spots to get in and out of our car.
Interesting.
It's the people who are upset and think they deserve and that they're owed and that they're entitled to those spots that generally are like, all right, man, like, you're just fat. Like, you don't actually need this spot. You're just fat.
I love it. And one of the things I love about you is how cryptic you are. When you talk, is just like, what's he actually saying? What does Kevin actually mean? Dude, talk to me about the adaptive program and what that's like, for you, as a coach, as an athlete.
So we have the new CrossFit adaptive training seminar. And it's going really well, and I really love it. And I think it's really funny because people always ask me like about the course and what I think about it and what I think it actually is there for. And the funny thing is, I think that course, the whole adaptive course, is there to mitigate fear.
Interesting.
I mean, think about it. As a coach going through like a level 1, or if you're a level 2, or especially a level 3, you have everything, or if you've been doing this for any period of time, you have everything you need to know to train anyone. Like people aren't special snowflakes. Like,
right.
You know how to train them. I think the biggest problem with people training adaptive athletes is that they're literally so fucking terrified of training adaptive athletes wrong,
right,
and hurting them, that they don't do anything. They're paralyzed by fear because they don't want to hurt someone. So it's like, okay, we'll sit off in the corner and do something safe, and let's not push your limits like we would anyone else, because I, as a coach, am scared of what happens if I coach you. And so
interesting plays on word there, that they're paralyzed, like, by fear, right? But
you need to do that. Dang it, that was a good one.
Yeah, no, I thought you did that on purpose, man. That's got to be a T-shirt or slogan.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm paralyzed. Don't you be paralyzed too?
I like that.
But I love that it's about fear. So, like, how many? So I cut you off there. So feel free to continue. But I wanted to ask you how many adaptive athletes come to get certified in that versus normal healthy coaches that want to understand how to coach adaptive athletes.
I would say about a third of the people that sign up for the course are adaptive athletes in some way, shape, or form. And then the other 2/3 are coaches who either already work with them, work with adaptive athletes, want to get better at working with adaptive athletes, or actually just see the need for working with adaptive athletes and kind of push on from there. I mean, because literally the whole course is like, this stuff. Let's give you a little information so you're less scared of it. But you already know what you're doing. You just got to understand that you know what you're doing.
Nice.
Because just like anyone else, there's no like if A then B in training. It's like if A, then A through Z is possible.
Right.
So you just kind of have to figure it out along the way.
It's very, very fascinating. I remember in Denver we did, because Steph was there, and you were. And I don't remember if you designed it or she designed it, but you put all of us through a workout after the seminar, and it was horrific. That
was Steph. Yeah, that was
yeah.
definitely Steph.
Yeah, but it's interesting when you're just for somebody who isn't adaptive, you take. Like take for granted just movement mechanics and momentum and things like that. And when you cut out body parts and have to still do stuff, I mean, it was tremendously fatiguing. It's a really interesting thing. I love that you connect and see it as a fear management thing. You know that I'm always a resource for you guys and the team. I would love to actually, we can talk about this offline, is get the adaptive staff together and maybe even do just a private video call just to get deeper into fear, because it'll give you guys more tools.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I always, one of the things I always tell people about the course is that people are worried about hurting us or killing us as adaptive athletes.
Right.
And I always jokingly say, I'm like, listen, we're adaptive athletes. That means something in our life has already tried to kill us and fail. I don't think a barbell clean or barbell snatch is going to do it.
Right. Right. I love it. I love it. I love your spirit, man. I love your energy and your vibe. What else do you have on the horizon? What else you doing?
Well, I got so I got the seminar staff on both L1 and adaptive, and then trying to qualify for the Paralympics.
Nice.
In Tokyo in 2020 for the Paralympic powerlifting team, so bench press. So yeah, just literally just three reps of a bench press at a competition.
Nice. And what's the weight domain? Do you have to, like, is this something that you can do, or you got to get to? You're like, oh shit, to actually qualify, I've got to improve XYZ.
I just actually switched weight classes, so yeah, I got to improve a little bit. Actually, oddly enough, the lower weight class opposed to the higher weight class for para powerlifting is actually harder to qualify in. And I was just informed like last month I need to drop down to the lower weight class. So now I got to add about like 10 or 15 kilos to my bench over the next 3 or 4 years if I want to have a shot at qualifying as a 215 pound or 97 kilo lifter.
Wow. It's amazing that, this is an audio, but Kevin and I can see each other because I only release the audio, but it's amazing just how thick you are, how, just you've retained all of your muscle. You might even be bigger than when I saw you.
Oh, I'm definitely, my upper body is way bigger than before I got hurt, way bigger. Because all I ever wanted to do before I got hurt was squat and snatch. Like, I didn't want to do anything upper body. I just wanted to have huge legs and snatch a house.
Right. Amazing. Adaptive.
Yeah.
How many days are you on the road?
Starting out this year, I'll be gone every weekend from now until end of March, I think.
Wow.
So I'll leave almost every Friday, get back Sunday nights, and then run my gym Monday through Thursday, and then leave Friday, come back Sunday.
Beautiful. So, and Jim's doing well?
Jim's doing well. Like we're consistently growing and adding new members and new people and trying to do new things for our members and staff. And so I really like the community we've built here, man. We're very, I jokingly call us a soccer mom gym because we're just, people always think that because I was a regional competitor and always wanted to go to the games, that when I opened a gym, I would just drive towards competitors. And that's just not where I'm at, man. That's not what fires me up. For me, like getting someone who has 16 muscle ups, that 17th muscle up, it's cool. Like it's fine. It's cool. It's awesome. Like good on you. But like I had a guy, and like this almost brought me to tears. I had a guy who came in here and I was working with him for 2 months, and he comes in one day, he goes, "Kevin, I tied my shoes today." And I didn't know what that fucking meant. And I go, "Okay, cool." He goes, No, I don't think you get it. This is the first time in 25 years I was able to tie my shoes by myself.
Fuck off. Because of his weight. Because of his stomach, right.
Yeah. And I was like, and like that to me, like that sends chills and like gets me fired up, and just that drives the hell out of me.
Yeah, dude. I got goosebumps right now, just in that moment. That's amazing. It's amazing. I remember, I met you and you were like you know, at the games, you're a celebrity for the wrong reasons. You know, it's like, right.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean by that.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely. I do.
and by getting to know you and hang out. And when we went for sushi, I think my stomach was sore for a couple of days because of how much we laughed at
Yeah.
dinner. But you're really a good person, and you really, like, you're a great coach. And I remember kind of leaving that event and telling my son Nick, who's been in CrossFit for 10 years and coaching, and
Mm-hmm.
like holy shit, like, to, you know, if you could spend some time, you know, with Kevin, or anyone can, just because and I don't know how you were before the accident, but sometimes shit like that humbles you. I don't know if you know, or if you saw, we did a couple of tapes on that, but I got a neck injury last May that compressed the neck and killed a bunch of the nerves in my face. And it created what people call as Bell's palsy. And my whole left side of my face went paralyzed. And it's just starting, it's still rehabbing, and nerves regenerate at a millimeter a day. And, you know, nothing at all like your situation, but the impact it had on me emotionally, psychologically, neurologically, and dealing with it, it changed me a lot. It changed elements of gratitude. It changed how fast I moved. It changed who I wasted my time with.
Yeah, exactly the same for me. Like, I think, like, I just don't, beforehand, I think I was more willing to, like, waste time with somebody, even though I knew it was going to be kind of futile. Or I think, but the biggest thing it taught me, kind of what you said, is patience. Like, I don't move at the same speed I used to. Like,
Right.
I'm way more patient with myself and way more patient with people than I ever used to be. And
Right.
I think that was the biggest change from before and after for me, is just kind of A, learning how to accept help, and B, like, learning how to, like, just relax and just slow down just a little bit and be patient with that slowdown.
Right. Yeah. And that's the, you know, the weird, you know, silver lining, as they say. But, you know, it's in many ways, you know, made you a better human, and certainly an amazing coach. What else? I think we covered most of the stuff I wanted to talk about. What's your nonprofit do?
So my nonprofit is called the Reveille Project. Which the Reveille is like the wake up call in the military. So it's like the do. So, and so I started it with my buddy Ryan. We've been working on that since we started developing it in 2011. And we were actually Ryan was with me when I got hurt. We were actually out in California together. One, I was competing. Two, we had a meeting with some other nonprofits to get going. And so we supply year-long scholarships for veterans who have mood disorders or physical disabilities. And that scholarship covers a year-long membership to a CrossFit gym that we approve of, monthly nutritional check-ins and help, physical therapy, and kind of like encouragement to kind of get back out in their community. So it's completely free to the vet. Like, pretty much our main job is just fundraising to kind of pay for all this stuff. And you know, we kind of used it kind of the same way. Like, for me, when I was recovering from my injury, or for Ryan, who is, you know, quote unquote, recovering from war, you know, giving people that sense of community, that sense of tribe, and making them work their faces off. Like, it really helps. Like,
Right.
Work till you're tired, and, you know, work so hard that when you hit the bed at night, you fall straight asleep, and you'll be a happy man.
Right. That's amazing that you're doing that. Is that a Colorado thing, or is it nationwide?
Right now it's just Colorado. We've been operating for the last 3 years, have pushing almost, you know, somewhere around 30, 40 veterans through in the last 3 years.
Nice.
And we're in talks right now to start trying to take it a little more nationwide, with the help of some of our friends. So hopefully within the next year or so, we'll be able to help other veterans outside the state of Colorado.
Very cool. One of our affiliate coaches is a clinical psychologist, and we actually did 2 shows on the No Fear podcast with him. His name's Jeff, and excuse me one sec. He he's been working with a lot of veterans who have been dealing with PTSD, and he started applying our cycle of behavior to them, and started having amazing success. You should listen to that show, because there may be an introduction I want to make for you guys, just as a resource where, and maybe, I've got the capability to have like 100 people on a call all at once to talk about that. And it may be something where I have Jeff share his experience with, these 40 people that you sponsor. That'd be so cool. Just giving them more of a mental map when they do get a fear spike about anything in life, just something to help regulate that.
It's insane to me. I always tell people, if they're going to take 3 courses to become a better coach or just better at dealing with people, obviously I say the adaptive course because I helped develop it.
Right.
But then I tell them your course, and then a CrossFit level 2, and not just because the CrossFit level 2 like gives you tools to be a better coach, but because it also forces you to be able to take really nasty criticism. And people are always really surprised when they're like, ask me like, hey, how do I become a better coach? And I tell them self-defense seminar. And they're like, well, why is that? I'm like, because it's not just how to kick and punch people. It's literally like it's a mindset. It's how to control this stuff. And so we do a lot of work with another nonprofit called Phoenix, formerly Phoenix Multisport, that deals with addiction. And so we offer free classes for people who are 48 hours sober. And I always try to push those guys towards taking this class, because I feel like a lot of what has to do with like the veterans that I work with my athletes, or even with people who are going through addiction, is that when they slip back to what they were doing that they shouldn't be, there's always a point of fear that forces that backslide.
Right.
And so I always really push like learning about like fear management.
Right.
So anyone that works with a specialized population.
Well, I've been, last year I had my big epiphany was, just recognizing, after teaching for almost 40 years now, every decision ultimately comes down, when you peel that onion to the core, it's how you manage fear. And do you let it intimidate you so that you turn away, that you're immobilized by it, or you perform, less effectively because you're thinking about, like in the case when you're talking about your athletes, they're thinking about missing instead of hitting it. Or does when you change how you look at fear and the fear spike and the adrenaline dump, if you had, then this is my big epiphany, is like, if we taught people to get to know fear, that's the KNOW fear, just, hey, I want to know more about this, and not being cavalier. I got asked yesterday a really cool question where, it was Ryan from Order of Man said, hey, like to learn more about fear, should we chase it? Should we go after, seek, experiences that? And I said yes and no. If you're afraid of heights, will skydiving, help you overcome your fear of heights? Maybe not. You don't have to do it. It's not about like the 1 or 2 thrill events that's going to change stuff. It's really, Alan Watts, very famous Zen philosopher back from the 60s, he said, if you can't meditate in a boiler room, you just can't meditate. And what he meant by that was, like, everyone goes to a retreat for 2 weeks or 10 days or 2 days to meditate, but then they can't reintegrate into the city,
Well, I think it's weird that someone would ask, like, should you chase fear? When, in my personal opinion, I mean, like you said, like, every decision comes down to like knowing that fear. But also, like, I've seen people who literally chase fear with like, I don't know why I'm doing finger quotes. No one else can see me but you.
I appreciate it.
But I know some people who are like adrenaline junkies and chase that fear, but are pretty much like decisionally paralyzed in their real life, because they know extreme fear of like bodily harm, but they can't manage the fear of making a decision.
Right.
So I feel like you don't need to chase fear. You just need to learn how to recognize it almost. And recognize it as something other than, oh my God, I'm going to die. Not all fear is, oh my God, I'm going to die.
Right. Right. And that's a great observation. So you've got, if that individual who, is the adrenaline junkie, can't have normal relationships, can't, socialize properly. That's that Alan Watts thing. They can't reintegrate into society. They're only in the zone when they're in their zone. That's an interesting observation. That's very cool. Yeah. The question that Ryan asked me, again, on behalf of listeners, is like, how do you learn? How do you do that? It was more of a kind of an objective question. Do we seek the things that are outside our comfort zone? And that's one way, except, and here's the more valuable thing for everyone listening. If you sign up and sign an NDA or a hold harmless agreement in pursuit of knowing fear, and you've agreed to that event, that's not the same as the event knocking on your door. That's the secret sauce right there, is, do you have the skill set when it's uninvited, when it's unsolicited? You track what I'm saying there, Kev? It's like,
yeah, absolutely.
So you can go, oh, this will be scary. Let's do rapids. Let's do skydiving. Let's do bungee. Let's do, force on force, simunition, shooting. Oh, that's scary. And you do it enough, you stress inoculate, but that's not the same as the real event. And it's not the same as, and again, if you can't tell somebody you love them, if you can't tell somebody, hey man, we got to split up, if you can't tell somebody I deserve more money, I want to raise, or I'm selling my business, I don't like this, I'm not happy, that's the real confrontation. And that's the real fear management is about self-actualization, becoming a better person. Those confrontations.
And I can tell you from my experience, like I was told I was going to die. I was told, like, say goodbye to your family. You have less than 15% chance of surviving. Like, you're going to die.
Whoa.
And so, like, there's a level of fear there. But I got to tell you, like, once I got out of that first surgery, and even what I remember of going into the first surgery, I never, like, that was never the thing that kept popping in my head. It was never the thing that, like, wouldn't leave my brain. What always like stayed in my brain is, like, what now? Like, how do I keep going? Like, what about work? What about relationships? What about this? And then I never really realized, like, why that stuff kept popping back in my head, instead of, like, what people would think would be the big thing, which is, like, you're going to die.
Right.
And then, having talked to you and known you for a little while, I think after that course and kind of thinking it over, I'm like, I know why that stuff came into my head. Like, those were my real fears. I wasn't super afraid of, like, if I don't come back, I don't come back. Like, it's either A or B. There's no really two options there.
Right.
But knowing that the reason those things were kept going and, like, popping in my head, and that's what I was thinking about, and that's the only thing I could think about, recognizing that was my fear really helped me kind of understand my own fears and, like, what actually, like, makes me afraid and how to handle it.
That's amazing. Why did the doctors say that? Like, was that just...
He has to. Like, okay. with that small of a chance of survival, he has to prepare.
Right. Okay.
Me and the family. He has an obligation to let us know that there's a very small chance of surviving. Because he was like, yeah, like, well, we don't know. You may come back, you may not come back, and then give my family false hope.
Right.
That's kind of mean to give false hope, but also he opens himself up to a ton of litigation.
Right. Crazy. Wow. That's heavy, man. I didn't know that. I'm kind of just digesting that.
Yeah.
Wow is all I can say. Dude, you're like, I interviewed Brian Murphy yesterday, who's a retired cop from Wisconsin, who was in a gunfight with some psycho who Brian, the first two shots the guy shot while Brian was running towards him, the guy was 40 yards away and spun. He was running, and while his back was still to Brian, turned and spun and fired a shot, and that first shot hit Brian in the face, dropped him. And then the guy ran around and flanked him. His second shot hit Brian in the gun hand, blew his top of his thumb off, and knocked the gun out of his hand. So the guy fired two shots at him. One hits him in the face. One shoots his gun out of his hand. The guy comes around and then from 8 feet away, shoots at him 26 times and hits him 15 times, and Brian lives. And he's just sitting there like on his elbows facing him. thinking, come here, fucker. Like, you get closer to me, I'm going to take you down and fucking jump on you. And he's like, been shot in the face, in the head. And what brings it up as, I was like, here, like 2 days in a row, literally talked to Brian, it was 1 or 2 days ago. And I'm going, how mentally tough is this guy? And I feel the same thing about you, where this happens to you and someone says, hey, you got a 50-50 chance. And you're like, okay, what do we do now? Right. And dude, it's such an honor to know you and learn from you and absorb the shit from you. No, it's amazing. And it's amazing.
I appreciate that.
Brian's out there talking to cops about mental toughness, about understanding breathing and staying cool under fire. And you're out there doing the same thing. You're inspiring people, man. And I'm glad to call you a friend. I'm glad that I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. And I'm so, I think it's so.
Feeling is mutual. You teach a lot of people a lot of stuff about managing fear. And I think that's, one of the most important things we can learn on this earth.
Yeah. I mean, I got a selfish bias on that. I think it's everything.
Yeah.
I think it's everything. It's, but what's the best way for people to learn more about you? What's your websites and contact info? And
gym website is just CrossFitWatchtower.com. Everything else is usually just social media, which is just at Kevin Ogar. That's all of it. And then, I don't really do any of the face page stuff as much as I probably should. Mostly just Instagram and the tweeters.
Right.
So other than that, we're getting ready to roll out like an adaptive CrossFit website type thing where it'll be a little bit. We're trying to push towards that. So we have like a one-stop shop or like one place where people can go kind of check that kind of stuff out.
I dig it. Okay, man. Hey, next time you're in Cali, let me know. We'll try and get some sushi. And it was so good. Thanks for making the time to be on the show. And
thanks for having me. Yeah.
And we'll see you again. Maybe let's set up a seminar next year at some point, although you're booked every weekend.
I can make time for you to come down and do the seminar. You've been the one seminar I've really wanted to get at the gym and haven't had a chance to yet.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Okay, man. Be safe. Have a great day.
Yeah. You too.
Thanks, dude. Bye.